Call the meeting order. Please rise for pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Weigel.
Here.
Judy O'Donnell.
Here.
Robert Howard.
Here.
Steve Bowles.
Here.
Rachel Leone.
Here.
Lawrence David Berry.
Here.
Denise Wilson.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. We have minutes from September 13th. Any additions or corrections?
Motion approved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. New business. Case M16002, map amendment from A1 to I1. Kimberly, want to give us an update?
Yes, were you going to address the ZC 16007 first, or would you like me to go to ZC 16012?
Aren't they the same?
No, 007 is for map amendment. And staff requests that a motion that this could go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission as a single notification that's state mandated, did not.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We need to send this back to Planning and Zoning Commission. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next case is the Special Parks and Open Space District. Steve, this is your.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Ladies and Zoning Committee. This is actually a really interesting case, and I'm going to be fairly brief, but it's hard not to be passionate because staff feels very strongly about this case. A little while back, staff initiated a new zoning district called the SP-PO Parks and Open Space District. And the purpose of this district is really to allow for zoning classification for open space recreation centers, generally the type of things that we see as parks or nature centers, so they're taken out of a residential context. In this case, it's the Frankfurt Square Park District. They are rezoning from R4 and R5 to our new zoning classification. The reason being for this is they are looking to expand their programs, including beekeeping, on a property that is actually very well served, or very prominent in the community and serves the community very well. Staff is incredibly supportive of this request. We had visited the parcel. We spent about an hour and a half with the park district, and really this is a phenomenal site. This has to be one of the most progressive nature centers in the south suburbs, if not all of Will County. And staff is encouraging a map amendment from R4 and R5 to the SP-PO Parks and Open Space District. So thank you.
Any questions by committee? Any objector to this change? Okay, motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, Kimberly.
Thank you, Chairman Weigel. Zoning case CC-16-012 takes place in New Lenox Township. The applicant requests a special use permit for an outdoor storage yard for the purpose of allowing an excavating and construction contractor business. The general location of the subject property is east of Cherry Hill Road between East Laraway Road and State Route 52. The applicant proposes a gravel driveway and a gravel parking yard that is approximately 3 acres in area for outdoor storage of heavy equipment. The applicant is currently working on a site development permit, SD-16-CI012, concurrently with this zoning case. With I-2 general industrial zoning, an excavation company could be permitted on the subject property with an enclosed building. In this case, a special use permit is required because no enclosed building exists on the subject property. The classification of this use is outdoor storage yard. The subject property is zoned I-2 and is surrounded by I-2, A1, with I-1, C3, and C4 in close proximity. Village of New Lenox is to the west. The general area has a mix of industrial, commercial, and agricultural districts. There is evidence of industrial development trending in this area as currently demonstrated by Will County Highway Department, a self-storage facility, a trucking company, and a body shop. The special use permit, if done with adequate measures to protect adjacent properties, specifically the residential uses, would not be out of character.
Number 3.
There are 2 residents abutting to the north within very close proximity and demonstrate the need for mitigating conditions to ensure compatibility. Staff will condition the special use permit with a buffer to minimize dust fumes and noise. There are a total of 7 conditions. Number 4 and number 6 were amended. Number 4 pertains to the buffer, and it was amended to remove a berm from the verbiage. The applicant had concern regarding water issues present on this site. So the condition has been amended and the special use permit will not require berm. However, the 20-foot wide landscape strip and a solid fence are still required. Number 6 was amended to correct the hours of operation. The hours of operation may not occur between 6:30 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. Staff recommends approval of a special use permit for for an outdoor storage yard with 7 conditions. That concludes staff analysis.
Thank you. Any questions by committee?
Thank you. They identified that there's possibly drainage issues there, and if they're going to actually gravel like 3 acres of property approximately, am I hearing that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and if they compact that, is there going to be a water runoff issue there?
The review process will go through the engineering division. So any potential hazards or potential issues will be addressed at that time.
Okay, awesome. Apparently we don't require any kind of retention, or would that be addressed in the engineering issue?
The plan for the site development permit does show an area for a detention area. That was included with the
Okay.
Staff report.
Yeah, we can't get into our
Okay.
computer, so it's very frustrating.
They have to comply with our stormwater ordinance. It does require detention,
Okay,
so that they have to control the runoff.
okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Are there any objectors to this change? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next, item 4, Kimberly.
Thank you. Zoning case ZC-16-014 takes place in Custer Township. The applicant requests a special use permit for a recreational club with a campground for the purpose of allowing 14 additional campsites. The general location of the subject property is south of Wilmington along 53 in the Braidwood Recreation Club. The Braidwood Recreation Club is a not-for-profit private outdoor recreation club with more than 1,200 acres of recreation and open space areas. The majority of the club is zone C6, commercial recreation. The parcel ending in 002 was acquired by the club with A1 zoning from the Forest Preserve. The zoning for this parcel is zone A1. It is not consistent with the remaining C6. The subject parcel is non-conforming as it was created without lot frontage in 1977. The club had 2 options to allow camping. Number 1, amend the entire parcel, which was 107 acres, from A1 to C6 to match the existing parcels, or to request a special use permit for all or a portion of the parcel and remain A1. Typically, the land use department encourages consolidation of lots when multiple lots are owned by the same owner and utilized for single use. It is encouraged to amend the zoning district to C6 to have cohesive zoning. This would promote a holistic approach and eliminate confusion with multiple lots and multiple zoning districts. In this instance, the zoning administrator allowed the Braidwood Recreation Club to opt for the second option to allow the flexibility to zone only a portion of the property as zoning fees are based on acreage. The parcel will remain A1. It is important to note that an electrical permit was obtained concurrently with this zoning case to allow for the electrical hookup of the additional campsites. And an after-the-fact site development permit will be required for the newly created road that was established without permit. Staff recommends approval of this special use permit for a recreation club with a campground with 4 conditions. This concludes staff analysis.
Is there any questions by committee?
Motion approved.
I have a question, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, I'm sorry, I didn't read it. What portion of it is, oh, so it's 107 total acres, and what portion do we want to change to C3 just for the additional camping? What portion of it?
The entire parcel will remain A1.
Okay.
But 50 acres, the west portion of that parcel, will have the special use permit for the campsites.
Okay. All right, good, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, that was my question.
Any objectors to this change? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Other business, revoke permit 5993, MS2V2. David?
Good morning.
The
The department recommends that this particular revocation be removed from the agenda, that the owner of record is in chief compliance is working with our department. If you have any questions, Dean Olson is here from RME regarding the matter, but just in general, we do recommend that this be removed from the agenda since the compliance has been achieved.
Okay, this was tabled, so I guess we need to remove it from the table, then we can remove it from the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to untable it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Motion to remove. Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So I just want to make a comment.
Okay.
So I just want to make a comment. So this came before us last time, and the person who owns the property was not in compliance. You guys weren't able to get a hold of him. Since then, he came forward to our last meeting and worked with land use. So because of that, we don't have to worry about revoking the special use permit. He's come in compliance and he's going to be able to move forward. I just wanted to put that out there because not everyone understands. People out there who are watching this, they don't understand what we're talking about. So it was an issue we had. It's been resolved, so we don't have to revoke the special use. Thank you guys for working on that.
Good work, guys.
Okay, next item is Echo Housing. David? Give us an update.
What I thought I'd do this morning is go through and review what other area counties do with regard to echo units. Then summarize just basically what our current ordinance authorizes, how many numbers we currently have on file, and then just some options to go through to get direction from the committee as to where we need to go with this. Colin in our office did a good job of looking at this 6 counties in the area to see what they have on file for echo units. People deal with them in a variety of different ways, all the way from allowing them as permitted use to prohibiting them outright. So I'll start from top to bottom and kind of go through them and see if you have any questions. Again, this is a very high-level overview. I don't have all the nitty-gritty details, but this is a general synopsis of what they require. Kendall allows for echoes in ag only with separation distances from adjacent housing. that's administrative approval. In Henry, there's outright prohibited. They do have a provision for non-conforming units, but there's outright prohibited. DeKalb, they have a special use permit process similar to ours. It's an interim, what they call interim special use, more of a temporary nature, which is supposed to be ag zoning, and again requires a special use permit. Lake County is probably the most liberal on this, where they allow accessory dwelling units in certain zoning districts with the minimum lot area. And it's an administrative approval. Grundy allows for related living in the principal structure with no detached. And then Kankakee has an interpretation of state law where they allow second single-family residences on an ag property utilizing an ag exempt process. That's not directly correlated and related to an ECHO unit, but in essence it does allow for that type of situation and accommodates it in that manner. So just in general, again, all the way from a prohibition to permitted administrative to a special use permit, but if you do see a theme in here, it's predominantly within agricultural zoning districts where they allow these. This is county zoning. These particular zoning districts are where the current zoning ordinance allows for an ECHO unit within the prescribed limits in the ordinance as permitted accessory dwelling unit. I've also put up there the minimum square footages that our county zoning ordinance has for this particular zoning district. So, the ag being 10 acres, A2 being 2.5. E1, and that put the rest of the square footages, is close to 5 acres. E2 is close to 2.5. Then you've got R1, a little bit over an acre. R2 about an acre. R2A a little bit less than an acre, and then R3 about half an acre. And then you see the active ECHO unit numbers that we have on file right now. I know we talked about the number of 18, but 18 is actually the A1 district. You have one in A2, one in E1, and then one in the R3 zoning district. This fiscal year, we've added 2 ECHO units to the total, bringing it to the 21. But again, it's a total of 21 in the county. So I'll stop at that point before I go on to potential options for discussion today to see if there's any questions on the information provided.
Any questions by committee?
Yeah. Sorry, just real fast, David, I didn't catch you. R2, you said R1 is 1 acre?
The R1 is a little over an acre. It's 43,560 square feet is 1 acre. So the R2 is the acre threshold, just about the acre threshold.
What is the 2A?
The 2A is a little bit less. It's about 3/4 of an acre.
Okay.
And then the R3 is about a half acre.
Okay, thank you.
As far as your time spent on with ECHO housing, I mean per year, what is an average applicant? What is the application process? As far as time spent from the county staff on this?
I don't have it quantified by an hour and a minute, but just generally under the current process, there's 2 things required, provided there's no engineering component to it in detailed nature. Building permit application, and then we also have a separate form that basically verifies compliance with the local zoning.
Okay.
So it's a rather simple process.
Sure.
Provide all the requirements for that.
So staff time is 2 hours, 3 hours?
I would say on the zoning component, if everything's submitted complete, it shouldn't take probably more than an hour.
Okay.
With the zoning. Again, it's if everything's complete. If they're not, and there's follow-up, obviously, then you have phone calls and other components of that.
Sure. So
the building permit process, Mike, I don't know if you can, just an echo, how long there's a review process period when anyways.
I would say on the administrative side, review of a mobile home only takes staff about an hour. You do then have inspections as the mobile home is brought out to the property, placed on the property, plumbing and electric is hooked up. So obviously those inspections, once you figure in drive time and everything add up.
sure.
But
And there is an inspection fee on it, correct?
it's part of your building permit fee. We don't charge for each inspection. We just have
The re-inspection.
charge at the beginning.
Okay, all right. And there's no backlog right now, there's?
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think the big issue was the fee, whether we want to waive the fee or not. But do you have some more to add, Dave?
Sure. It's, I'm going through the zoning component. If part of the outcome of today's committee is, a consensus that we want to modify the fee schedule, we're more than happy to, take that through the process as well. My intent today was trying to prepare us for a public hearing within the next 1 to 2 months. If I can get some consensus and direction on what text to change. And if there is direction given today, then we would modify the text, bring it to committee, have you look at it, and if it looks okay, we'll go to public hearing. But here's some options based upon what I've been hearing, possibly how to address some issues. The first one is leaving it as is. And I'll walk through these, then we can go back through them, and then have the committee discuss maybe one by one and give a consensus, either yes or no, and move on. One option is leaving it as is, and going forward, but again, there has to be some consensus because we have a lot of divergent views on the topic. The other one is going forward as we have, is we're making a special use permit in the same districts as it's currently authorized. Another option could be to modify the permitted accessory as a permitted accessory use in certain zoning districts and make it in special use permit in others. So you could go A1 permitted and then special use in the other districts. You could just go completely eliminate authorization in certain districts. If there's a feeling that it's predominantly ag and you don't want to deal with have it within the residential districts, eliminate it in those districts and make it permitted as administrative in the ag. You could require minimum square footage on the units. Right now, there's just a maximum. So I don't know if there's any view on wanting to deal with the size of the units. You might want us to look at modifying unit types. Right now, it's basically a manufactured home with the HUD seal. I do know that we have the tiny houses issue. We have, even with echo units, other jurisdictions get into allowing a temporary medically equipped unit to be put on the property. When I say medically equipped, it's disabled accessible. It allows for a hospital bed. It has shower components in it for disabled individuals. It's made for medical care on a very short-term and temporary basis. So that may be something you want us to look at. You might want us to modify the eligibility requirements. I know there was discussion on 62 and disabled or 62 or disabled, and whether or not we want to allow an elderly resident that's not necessarily disabled in there, or if you want the combination and get rid of the or and the and. We could also take a look at the licensed caretaker occupancy. There is a provision in here that you can't have a licensed caretaker as the occupant of the ECHO take care for the owner or the care for the individual on the property. So these are a lot of different issues that I've been hearing. And I think we need to walk through them and get some direction, if the committee desires to do that, to move forward if there's any additional text changes to the ordinance or if you want to focus solely on the fees. We just need direction from you as to what you want us to do.
Okay, comments, Rick?
Yeah. I have a question for you, David.
Sure.
I'm still struggling with this because if I were to walk into your office right now and I were to say, I just bought an E1 lot in a subdivision in the county and I want to build 2 homes on my lot, what would your office say to me?
Well, you would not be allowed 2 principal residences on the site.
Okay. So I build my house, I close at 9 a.m., we move in, and 11 a.m. I walk in and say, I'd like to apply for an Echo House on that E1 property. Now all of a sudden it's okay for me to apply if I meet all the current as-is.
Provided you're in the particular zoning district that's authorized as an accessory dwelling unit and all the minimum requirements are met and appropriate documentations provided for that particular type of unit, yes, it'd be authorized.
So then I would be able to get my 2 houses on the lot. Going back to that graph that you had on the properties, a couple months ago I spoke about the fact that I would be okay with it in agricultural zoning, because I felt that's really what it was almost intended for a long time ago, and I didn't feel that it had any business in the residential zoning districts and subdivisions. By looking at it, it looks like 20 out of the 21 are currently there. When you go to the other communities that surround us, the other counties, almost all of them kind of tend to lean towards that agricultural zoning, if I read that correctly, yes?
Yes.
I would be in favor of keeping the eco housing in the agricultural zoning, like I stated for the last couple of months. I just don't believe it has any place in the residential zoning districts in Will County. I also believe there needs to be a minimum put on the property. I would like to see, 400 or 500 square foot minimum. I don't want to see a 200-foot tiny home plopped in a residential subdivision right on 10 feet from my lot line in a Will County residential subdivision. So as I stated, I'm okay with it in agricultural zoning. 19, 20 actually, well, 215,000 square feet, and that's 5 acres almost. I'm okay with that, so 20 out of your 21 would fit in what I'm okay and comfortable with, as long as we put the minimum requirement on there. Now, as far as a medically stable unit, or whatever you call it, I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with the caregiver living in an eco housing unit. If the caregiver is living on site and that this individual needs 24-hour care or someone to be there, I don't have a problem with that. But I do believe we need to put restrictions on the size. I do believe we need to put restrictions on the zoning. And it's not only because of the individuals that are going to be living in the houses, but it's to protect the residents around it as well. I don't believe it's just the property right of the owner who lives there. I believe that there's property rights for the individuals that are surrounding those properties as well. That's just my 2 cents.
Judy?
Yeah, so Ray and I have a little bit of a difference here. As far as we have a maximum size, a minimum size, I don't know, you see the tiny homes on TV right now. I do know that they can build a tiny home that would be, for instance, for my mother-in-law. She would need a bedroom, a bathroom, small living area, and a tiny kitchen. So she would be able to live in something. She doesn't cook anymore. So I would need a place for her to bathe, a place for her to sleep, and hang out during the day. So as far as a minimum, I'm not sure what minimum we might set for that. 200 does seem kind of small to live in, but I believe totally in property rights. I believe that you have the right to own your property, and you should be able, it's bad enough you're going to pay property taxes all the time to all the taxing bodies that want to suck money away from you as a property owner. Seems like that's the goal of most taxing bodies. So I think that as a property owner, you should have the right to own your property and use your property that's best suits for you and your family. Sometimes there are issues that come up, and a family has to help provide for their elderly relative for one reason or another. I do think that it makes sense to allow this in properties that are especially, I could say a large enough size, at least an acre or near an acre. You have plenty of space on that piece of property. Put an eco housing unit. I know that Ray is very concerned in the residential areas like R2A and 3 where they want to do it. Again, all this is being driven by the fact of one issue that's come up before us. I'm not a big fan of making changes because of one person. One person's always going to stir the pot, and just because one person's stirring the pot doesn't mean we have to make significant changes. So I know that you want to protect property rights of everyone around, but that's an issue too that doesn't end. So I think that we should look at what Tom had said about waiving the fee if we want to use a special use permit, and that makes sense to me. That way you guys have a little more control over to make sure the type of unit that's being put on the property is right and built well. And I think we shouldn't allow just a little shed to be built or anything like that. So you have your building permit requirements that stand. So That's kind of where I'm leaning on this.
Any other questions or comments? No?
Again, I believe both committee members had great points. And in a rural area, it makes absolute sense. Yeah, I see no problem with that. The other problem that I do see, though, is basically that we are not backlogged on the amount of applications. We have not had numerous applications for the tiny homes along that line like that. And when I look at the other counties, what they actually did, one actually kind of stuck out in my mind, and that was, I believe it was with Grundy County. One of them basically said that basically related living, that they'll allow related living in your own home. Guys, you're crossing the line when you start telling me who can live in my home and who can't. I think that's a government intrusion beyond belief. But anyway, along that, I do believe that, you know, with Ray's point, you know, as far as a small home being built after the fact next door in a community that everyone assumed that was a single home on each lot, you know, that could be somewhat problematic. But I have to ask the question, though, if I don't believe that we would permit an application for a full-blown home, meaning that it would have a foundation in that stance, or are we just talking basically a manufactured home?
Pre-manufactured home has to be a temporary nature, which is...
Okay, so it's a temporary home. So it's not like they can just walk in there somewhat deceptively and say, hey, look, I want a permit for a second home on my property now. And again, they have to meet that criteria of an individual that needs a caretaker or a special circumstance. It's just not, I want to move my son in or daughter in or what it happens to be. It has to be a special needs process. Correct?
I thought our rule was you don't have to be. You could just be 62 years old. You don't have any special needs or anything.
That's correct.
Related, though. You have to be related by blood or marriage.
No, that's my point.
The ECHO
I
requirements...
think we need a fact check here.
Fact check.
The owner...
Go to my website live. Hillary Clinton.
So no, my understanding is it has to be a related living by blood or marriage.
Let me read the ordinance.
Okay.
The owner of the principal residence in the resident of the ECHO unit must be related to blood, marriage, civil union, or adoption, or be a licensed caretaker.
Okay, so it can be a caretaker. So,
That's correct.
again, there's a special circumstance that allows this. It's just not arbitrarily, I cannot move somebody in that has no need.
Yes. That's
Well, let's talk, you can't be, you know, you say a special need. That is where some of the confusion arises about this. The special need is you've achieved your 62nd birthday. Okay? You don't have to, currently, under the ordinance, you don't have to have any more special need than the fact that you celebrated your 62nd birthday. It says, or you are disabled. So you could be 45 years old, but have some disability condition. Or you could be the caretaker to someone in the main residence. That's the current framework.
Okay, let's back up to the 62, okay? Basically, what this would allow for, okay, I believe this is the intent, what it would allow for. Let's say mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or somebody, we want to move in there so that they're actually adjacent to the home. I understand that. To me, there is a need for that. There is an underlying need somewhere that this individual is going to move there. It's not like I'm just going to, or somebody's going to actually put a home there or whatever and rent it out to 62 above. It's not that type of scenario. What we try to do is we try to protect against that, an abuse of that type of thing. So I would have to say that, again, due to the number of applications on this, the number of problems that we had in the past, I would say just leave everything the way it is. I mean, basically what we're going to do is you know, create laws for scenarios that we actually formulate, this committee or, you know, or the board formulates at that point in time. So again, I have seen no true abuse of the system. The one complaint that we did receive was basically it was a person above 62 that moved in, and they were too active for the neighbor made accusation that they were actually too active. And again, for whatever that means. But
The principal concern of the complainant was their assumption, incorrect assumption, that it was still a special use provision under Will County law, and therefore they would have anticipated that they would have received notice and had an opportunity to speak at a hearing. Now, what their particular objections might have been at that hearing, if it had occurred, would be speculation. But their principal concern was they were under the assumption, incorrectly, that there was currently provisions for special use, and there's not. And in many ways, that's what's given rise to our current examination. But Mr. Chairman, I think what we're all struggling with here, and what David has tried to provide some framework for, is there is quite, understandably and justifiably, a wide range of divergent opinion on this committee on this topic. And from a staff standpoint, that makes it rather difficult to keep throwing spaghetti at the wall and see which one's going to stick. So I guess it's obviously your prerogative, but we may not reach consensus today, but for the simple purpose of coming up with a draft that you can consider and then have votes on with respect to amendments or changes in language, it would be helpful if we could take this in a more systematic way, topic by topic, and see if there is any rough consensus on elements of it, so David can then draft a draft ordinance language for your consideration, and then you can go through the normal committee process of amending sections and taking votes. But I think if we continue in the path we're currently on and have been for the past 3 minutes, we're never going to come to grips with this.
Another suggestion might be to draw up a matrix of all these items and distribute it to all the committee members and let them state yes or no on each of the items. And then you could bring back a consensus of what is reported to you, to the committee, and then we could vote on it.
I think
Right?
it could be a lot quicker than that.
You'd rather go through each item?
No, I'd rather just say, you know what, I could bend a little bit, people could bend. Is everyone okay with it in the agricultural? Yes. Okay. Is everyone, not everyone's okay with it in residential. I mean, what if we were to say estate and the majority, estate and agricultural?
Yes.
Yes? Yes? We could allow this in a state. Mr. Chairman? Yeah. Go ahead.
If I may comment.
First, I don't know why we're making this so complex. I know this. For many, many years, it was a special use, and it was not a problem. When it didn't become a special use, it's now a problem, because it becomes totally unregulated. To be honest with you. And I don't quite understand some of the arguments that only you have your own property rights and the people around you don't have any. You can impact them in any fashion you want if it's for your benefit. That to me is not a very good argument. Let's not make it more complex than it is. I think the issue is, if you want to exempt it in agriculture, fine. But all the residential zoning classifications, it should require special use for the protection of everyone. And you may think this is something that's sparingly used, but I can tell you, I represent the kind of the front end of the baby boomers. And let me tell you, we're going to be retiring in massive numbers. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, you know what, this ain't so bad deal. Because I'm going to hire a housekeeper, and I'm going to put her up in my yard. I mean, you think this is not what's going to happen? Do you think that now one of my 6 children is having a hard time and I don't move in my little house in the back, you don't think that people do this? And by the way, you don't regulate rent. If I want to put one in my yard, and I think I could, by the way, I can rent it out to the caretaker, or the so-called caretaker. I mean, I do think we need to have the public weigh in, and people have their say. This idea that you don't want surrounding property owners, you don't want to have a public hearing, that you want to just say, you just do what you want, that's fine, if that's where you live, maybe in these agricultural areas. It's not fine in my neighborhood.
We're pretty much agreeing that we want to have a special.
Well, then make it
use
simple. Just do it by zoning classification. You don't need all the, I mean, if there's other changes or clarifications you think that need to be made, exactly who's going to be qualified, I think that's really something that you're never going to be able to regulate. I mean, I guess you have to go on the assumption that it's being used for an intended use, but don't be so surprised if it isn't. And that's one of the reasons I think that a special use process, a public hearing, is really probably necessary because it doesn't fit everywhere.
All right, David, why don't you put up the
Thanks for my time.
zoning districts? Thank you, we appreciate it.
I have another thing I'd like to-
Okay.
I'm sure everyone would like to hear this. So, I kind of like what Key County does with allowing a second residence on an ag property, because if you have, and as far as what that would be, I would think it would be A1 for sure, because we had a 160-acre family farm for my husband and I to build our property on our family farm. We had to break it into another parcel. I think that as a family farmer, we would really like to keep our family farm intact and not be separate units. So I think that would be something I would like to see on this. I think it's a good idea for us to do. We're all talking special use, Jim, because we feel that it makes sense to have these guys in this room who are trained to make sure that if somebody is an elderly person, that they are being put into a good, safe place to live and have that extra authority. I think that's a good thing. That way it protects the elderly person or the disabled person from some family member who may not really care as much as they should. I kind of like their oversight involved. And Tom and I talked, we thought about with the special use, but waiving the fee. And I think it's a great idea, like Tom said, to look at the different zoning classes and let us give you our opinion by giving us this information, asking us to go on a bullet. I know we can make it easier. It's not going to be easier. I don't think there's too many differences here, just in this group. I can't imagine when we have the whole group together. But I think it would make sense for us to look at the zoning classes, for us to give you that yes, no. I know Ray and I have talked, and we kind of agree on certain things, so that's what my thought is.
Steve?
I don't have a problem with a special use, but I look at it that if we're going to go to a special use method, which is going to say anybody in any zoning classification can go to special use, doesn't mean it's going to get approved. We don't have to change the rules that we already got. We can just leave everything the same except go to special use. I mean, it's kind of pretty darn simple. So if in my neighborhood, if somebody wants to put it up on a 60 by 120 lot and they can fit it in there and there's no problems by the neighbors, God bless them. It got to go every year. Remember, it has to go for recertification. So it's not like it stays there forever. You can rent it out forever. You're not supposed to rent it at all, but you know that's been brought out. But if we're going to have a special use, does it matter about which zoning classification? The answer is no. So why not just leave everything alone and go to a special use permit and call it a day?
All right.
I got a question, Tom.
Okay.
So what's on the table now? Now, this is zoned A1, 10 acres.
Well, we need to
We're going
decide.
to allow a second home?
We need to decide on all of that information.
Well, I mean, let's do a little
We'll
bit
go
of
through-
startering here.
We'll go through each item here and we'll take a vote whether we want to have these districts.
Okay.
piece by piece, I guess, and give for some direction to staff. Wait,
Could we just start out that the equal housing could be allowed in A1, A2, E1, E2, and require a special use? Does anyone think outside of that is acceptable?
Yeah. I think it's acceptable in anywhere. If somebody wants to go for a special use permit, and there's no objection from the neighbors, and there's nothing, it's meeting all the requirements, no matter what the size is, it goes to special use, and everyone says, okay, God bless them, they can put it on anything they want. If we're gonna tell them no in a special use, it ends it. But at least they have an opportunity. They own the property too. You're gonna deny somebody that has a small lot the right to ask for permission to do it now? Or you know, I mean, that's what you're saying. Since I live on a little lot, I can't do it at all? Come on. I want permission to ask. You can tell me no, but give me permission to ask.
Steve, we're not down there yet.
Well, that's where it's headed.
We're at the top of the chart here. Okay?
I think the horse is still moving, let's keep beating it.
Let's make a motion on A1, A2, E1, E2 as required special use permit, and the eco housing would be allowed there.
I got a question though,
Okay?
so I understand what we're both on here. If we take A1, 10 acres, what I heard earlier said was basically we could put a second home on there. Okay, second home.
No, we're not talking second homes, we're talking eco housing.
Okay, so that's not on
She
the
said that she
table.
would like to see that someday come through the committee.
Okay.
With the discussion on the second home for the A1.
Right. He was just in that case.
Okay, we'll make a motion that the A1, A2, E1, E2 would be allowed eco housing with a special use permit. Let's have a motion for that. We have a motion, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Pardon?
I'm opposed.
You don't, you're a no?
I'm a no.
Okay. All right, R1,
I would say R1,
R1 and R2.
R2, R2A, R3.
Let's go R1 and R2. A motion to allow eco housing and a special use permit.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Special use. Right.
With the special.
Again, I'm a no.
Okay, you're a no on that? Okay, motion carries. R2A.
I motioned for R2A.
R2A to have eco housing with a special use permit.
And R3.
Let's do R2A first. Is there a second?
Second, so we can
Second.
vote.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
One aye? No, and nay?
No.
Nay? Nay, okay. R3, motion for eco housing with a special use permit.
I'd be an aye, so I motion.
Motion,
Second.
second, all in favor? Aye?
No.
No.
Aye?
No.
No?
No.
No?
I'm the-
There's one yes.
I'm the only.
Okay, motion fails. Okay. So we go up to R2 with eco housing and special use permit.
With the special use.
Right.
Okay, can I just confirm with you that in R2A and R3, you want to go from currently where it's authorized accessory to prohibited?
Prohibited.
Right.
The motion was prohibited.
Yeah.
Right.
So it would not be allowed in.
So, let me get this straight now. So if somebody wants to do it in R3, and like that one person did, we're denying them the right to come and even ask us.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so you don't find that wrong? I mean, I'm just throwing it, I think it's totally wrong to say that you can't even ask permission, you're automatically out.
Well, they'd have to go find another lot somewhere else.
How about the size of the house?
Another state.
Go to Indiana.
Indiana. Fast check, please.
How about the size?
Size of the You want minimum size or what? Right?
Yes.
What's your proposal?
I don't know, you guys would know better. What's a manufactured home? What's the size, square footage of a manufactured home?
David, do you know?
I mean, can you get a 350 square foot manufactured home? Or,
You know, in this process, I never see anything, you know, that small. We have a maximum square footage.
what is the smallest that you've seen come through?
Typically, they want the 1,200.
About 1,200 square?
That's the max we allow, and typically that's what they want.
It's a double wide.
So David, where we have 21 homes, they're typically 1,200 square feet? Is
Yeah,
that what it is? Or
I would say, I don't know exactly, but I would say from what I've seen typically, they're upwards 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, and most of them want that 1,200.
for the space you need
Yeah.
anyway.
That's our 40-foot law.
Again, if we're going with special use permits, why are we making a minimum size now? If we're going with a special use permit, we tell them at the special use permit, if they say they want to have a 100 square foot house, like be like a little shed, you know, it sounds stupid, but they can ask, at least give the property owner the right to ask for whatever he wants on his own property. Why should we tell him he has to have a minimum of a big giant thing when he don't want it? We can tell them at the special use permit what's going to happen as far as the rules. We vote on it. We're not going to let something in there that's going to be detrimental to the person living there. So I don't get why we're even voting on something like this. It's ridiculous. It's going to special use permit. We discussed it then.
Tom? Okay. Yeah. What we're doing now is basically we're rushing something through a committee here. And again, the technology, the innovation, there's a lot of different things out there right now. And I think that we're making an uneducated vote right now. I think that when somebody says, okay, the minimum size of a house is 1,200 or 1,100 or 1,000, you know, I think we have to be very, very careful on that to actually see what's actually out there right now. Again, I'm not comfortable like, you know, let's hurry up and vote on this just so we can prove a point or disprove a point or whatever it might be. I think we need to take our time. And again, the staff here does an excellent job. If we ask for information, they actually provide it, or they'll seek it out and provide it to us then. So I think, again, I don't want to get into design business here, and I think it's wrong. And at the same time, you know, we have an opportunity to reduce some rules sometimes and go back to common sense, and I think we should take advantage of it. I think every opportunity that we have, we're no different than Springfield. They do 2,500 bills a year, and it's like, let's hurry up and pass a law. Let's pass an additional law. Let's pass another law to correct something in the past. But again, we don't have that problem here. We had 21 applications. We had one complaint out of years and years and years and years. I think we need to stop, look at it, and look at what the future actually holds in store for us as far as designs, different types of homes, different types of care in the future. I mean, I just, you know, I find this very frustrating today. I think we're just going to hurry up and vote on something without the educated vote, you know? I mean, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Judy?
Yeah, so I don't know that we're rushing or anything. I think that David's provided us with a lot of information. David's looking for information to go somewhere forward with some sort of public hearing. I know the biggest requirement that several people are looking for is to go to special use permit as it was before. With that, then our staff has the ability to say, okay, this requirement must be met, to make sure that it's a safe, it meets all the different setbacks and everything like that, rather than just as a right. And I think it's probably a good thing to make sure that some of those things are there for the safety of the person living in that home, that they're not too close to another home, or especially if a fire were to happen, you wouldn't want to be too close, things like that. So I think it makes sense to make sure that the guys are involved with all of that. I wanted to ask right now, so David, like if somebody wants to put on a Echo home, it has to be HUD approved, so that means it's typically a manufactured home, or could it be, somebody could build one of these tiny homes on a trailer? Can you give us some input there?
At this point, in Echo Housing and Word it states must be a mobile home or an detached pre-manufactured home with a removable foundation. So what we see are pre-manufactured homes.
So they can't build one.
Yeah, they're pre-manufactured somewhere else, that's right, so
Yeah,
they could, so then eventually the person could choose to put a tiny home and put a little lift up into the loft for Graham to sleep. No, I'm just joking. That's a joke between Tom and I.
So, Colin, perhaps it'd be helpful if the chief building official could give you a little information about what the process is when you say a HUD-approved home. What does that mean?
Right.
Mike?
So the terms are used for mobile homes are somewhat confusing. They'll be referred to as pre-manufactured homes. Some companies will say, well, we provide modular homes. The key is it has to be HUD approved. So there's a set of federal guidelines, and HUD inspects and approves each mobile home that's manufactured when it's coming off the assembly line. That is the only thing we allow to be placed on a property other than a stick-built, single-family residence is a mobile home that's HUD approved.
And wouldn't you say, Mike, that part of that process is that certain code requirements that we ordinarily would assure through our inspections as to its adherence to the provisions of the Will County Code are really addressed through this HUD approval process?
That's correct. Since the mobile home is manufactured, usually in Indiana, on an assembly line, we're not there to inspect what is in the walls, how the electrics ran, how the plumbing's ran. So part of that assembly includes like a quality control process where someone inspects those improvements and improves it on coming off the assembly line. Now, there is a tiny house movement. Those are not HUD approved. And currently the county does have adopted building codes that regulates not the overall square footage of a home, but minimum square footage requirements for family rooms and bedrooms. So once you kind of piece all those minimum square footages together, it really eliminates a lot of the tiny home movement right now.
Dave, do you have any other? I think that the problem, minimum really isn't a problem. It's the larger home that would be a problem. If it's going to shrink the house, it's going to be less obtrusive and what have you, rather than a bigger house. So I don't think that's an issue. So maybe let's take a consensus, a motion not to have a minimum requirement. Have a motion to that effect.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No,
Okay,
I
one.
don't see why it hurts.
So,
Just to have one in there. If it can't meet it, then what does it hurt? Yeah.
so there's no minimum requirement required. What other issues do we need to discuss?
Eligibility. Eligibility.
Eligibility, okay. It's 62 or disabled, or caretaker. Any comments on that? Do we want to change that? Steve?
I think we should leave it as it is. When you say 62, and, you know, you start adding things on to 62, when's it going to end on what you can and what you can't? If it's all going to go to a special use, it can all be discussed there. But the rules as it is, 62, what if a person is 62 and they want to live with their family and because they have no money?
Eligibility can't be discussed.
So you can't, so to me, you shouldn't make any rules. Because you don't want to start saying, well, you make enough money to go rent an apartment somewhere. Well, what if the person doesn't want it? What if they can't afford it? They think they can't, but so-called government people think they can. So I think you leave all that alone, leave all the stuff alone. We're going to a special use, don't change anything else.
Okay. Any other comments? Ray, you want to change something?
No, you can't legislate, you cannot put that on the staff to legislate eligibility because it has a special use envelope on that. You cannot put that on them because that's outside of the ordinance. I mean, am I right or am I wrong?
We put it on already.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but he's saying get rid of that and not have any eligibility. We'll
I'm
let the
saying,
staff go.
I said, keep the 62 and don't have anything, no other thing, just leave it alone.
I would prefer to defer this to state's attorney. This has to do with the general question of, on a special use for an echo unit in what was an allowed zoning category, if we were to leave flexibility and allow that to be defined by imposition of a condition, you know, where in one case it could be 63, another case it could be 68. I prefer legal counsel to suggest whether that method would be legal.
I think it matters on how you're going to apply. I mean, it's going to affect whether the person can even apply or not, right? I mean, if you're going to put a requirement on there, then they can't even apply for a special use.
I think what's being suggested, Mr. Balish, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think what you're indicating is you'd prefer not to have much specification as to eligibility for an echo unit, but rather leave that to the discussion surrounding a particular proposal which was seeking a special use permit, and that the unique circumstances of that situation, irrespective of any criteria in the ordinance, would be put forward, and if the board, in hearing that particular special use permit and the circumstances surrounding it, were willing to say, we'll grant the special use, but the resident must certify that they are at least 45 years old, that we can do it by condition. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, you've got it pretty much, because if you go to special use and we don't change any of the rules right now, that would give somebody that was 55 years old, that lost their job, and now they can't afford anything, the ability to move into an echo with their kids. And I'm not saying that's happening a lot right now, but in the future, if the economy keeps going the way it is, you're going to see a lot of that.
Okay, so then Mr. Tuminello is asserting that he has some concerns about whether that is legal to leave that kind of flexibility for a special use process. And I guess that's the kind of clarification I'm seeking from the state's attorney.
You want an answer right now?
State that again, please.
Yeah.
Well, I was being asked to comment on it from, can you do that? And I'm telling you, I believe that that is a legal question that should be deferred to the learned counsel on that topic, about whether you're able to do it by condition to a special use permit.
Well, if we leave Steve is suggesting that we leave it as it is, 62, or disabled, then there isn't a question of younger age. Unless the guy's disabled. If he's disabled at 45, then you can put him
He
in.
said if he has a special condition, if he's 45
If
and
we're
can't
going to
afford it.
special use, and a person is, you're going to special use, and the rule is 62. Now, you could call special use for a person that can't find employment and has a choice of living in the YMCA or living in an echo home in their kid's backyard. That would be up to the committee to decide what would be right or wrong.
No.
And I don't think you're going to see too much of that kind of stuff right now anyway.
It's a slippery slope.
I don't know, I'm just saying, I'd rather live with, you know.
That would be a variance, wouldn't it? Or asking for-
I mean, that could all be addressed. We don't need to change the age to a higher age. We can just leave everything like it is. We can discuss all that
Can't
at
wait
the
to see this article.
special use.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, you've got a comment?
You've got in the ordinance now, I'm looking at it right, David, section I. It says it must be at least 62 years of age or unable to live independently because of disabilities. There's your options.
Yeah.
The age is set already. You can't then just come in and apply for a special use permit if you're 55 and you don't meet one of those requirements.
It's not that you're out of money and you're living on the street. You have to still be physically disabled or something like that.
Exactly.
But wouldn't you consider being completely broke a disability?
No, it has to be a physical disability.
I don't know, if I had nowhere to live, I'd say I'd rather live in an Echo house if my kids would let me go there than live on the street.
We can put a chicken house in a yard. It's a lot easier to put chickens in their yard. But Granny can live in, you can live with the chickens. Why not?
And unless I'm wrong, disability is defined under the ADA provision, so if it does not meet that, it does not constitute a disability. Is that correct?
That's correct. Being broke isn't one of them.
And so for me personally, I mean for the law to be across the board the same. If we're doing 62 and/or disabled or caretaker, that is the standard no matter who comes for the special use. And that's the only way that I'm willing to vote on it.
I think we can't lose sight of the original intention of the Echo Housing was basically to provide for those specific needs there. I mean, it was clearly called out. We don't have people standing in line now applying for Echo Housing. I think it's very specific, and it fulfills a need. So, I mean, as time goes on, I think, as Mr. Musa said, there are going to be more of those in need, you know, that meet these requirements. And at the same time, I think a large portion of our discussion is what are we actually going to allow for housing? That's the bottom line. How are we going to house those individuals that fit in this criteria? So I think we need to be conscientious of that, and we shouldn't shut the doors. I mean, I don't think I think we need to keep this open. And again, as Judy mentioned, in the agricultural areas, I mean, this is a very positive type of housing option. Again, and as Ray has mentioned, that it would be appropriate, he feels, in a residential area and an unincorporated area. So I think we're getting a little bit too far in the weeds on all of this, but at the same time, there is a specific need for this Echo Housing. You know, even though it's only 21 people that actually are utilizing this right now, I think we should, you know, move forward on that. And again, are we going to make it more difficult in the future to receive, have this as an option, or are we going to actually make it an easier option for those individuals? And that specific group, that 21 people there, had that need. So, and they fulfilled all the criteria. And the other thing that I think needs to be made perfectly clear, and land use is explaining this over and over and over again, this is not just simply moving somebody some kind of structure into a backyard. It still has to meet all the building department criteria. It still has to be inspected. It still has to pass the health department as far as if there's well and septic involved in this. It is a home. It is a home. When I actually built my house years and years and years ago, I went through the process at Will County. I actually moved a manufactured home out there. Had an agreement that once my home was completed that I would actually remove it off. I still had to have inspections on it. I still had to have inspections on the temporary foundation, the electrical, the well and septic had to be inspected by the county health department, and in the meantime built a house, actually removed the structure. I did not keep that structure forever and ever on my property. That was actually removed. So again, I have a personal experience with this. I've actually purchased a mobile home, lived in a mobile home, utilized the mobile home for what the intention of the housing until my housing was done, and actually I complied with the law, and I actually moved it off when I was done. So again, that was an option. Now, if comes a day where I have to move somebody in need, and I actually have zone day one, I look at that as an option. I can actually move that manufactured home on there. I don't want to call it a trailer. I don't want to call it a camper. I want to call it a manufactured home, because that's truly what it is. It's inspected by the federal government, by HUD. It's approved for that. And if and when I did that, I don't want obstructions. I want to do it in an expedient manner. I want to do it as quickly as possible, because apparently there is a need for it at that point in time. I want to utilize it out there. I will follow all the building codes out there. I will follow the Will County Health Department as far as their restrictions on the well and septic, actually move it out there. And it actually will be a home, okay? Let's not go back to the rhetoric of the campers and the trailers and the tents and the sheds and all that. That's not what this is. So again, you know, that's the way I feel about it. I'm passionate about this issue, and whenever we have a chance, especially sitting on the land use, to actually remove an obstruction, actually make something easier, make something more affordable, I think that's our duty. That's why I'm here to do that, because that's the way I believe on this. So again, and I don't think we should rush this through. If there's other options on there, as far as the manufactured homes out there, there's new products out there. They're more advanced than ever. There's more people than ever actually purchasing these homes. I think we should actually review those, look at all those. The land use will provide us that, and then make our decision upon that. Okay. Again, I'm experienced with this. I've actually dealt with this, and I think that we should do due diligence on this. We shouldn't arbitrarily say yes to no on something that we're actually not familiar with. So I'll leave it at that.
You're still in favor of the 62-year-old
Yes.
and the
Yes, I am.
disabled and the caretaker?
Yes, I think that was the original intention. Yes,
You don't
I
want
am.
to change that?
I don't want to change that.
Okay, Judy?
So I guess really what we're doing is coming around in a circle here, because in the days, I don't know how many years ago, there was a special use permit required to put an echo home on your property. After the last ordinance change, that special use was removed because of the fact that 99.9% of all special use permits for echo housing were approved, so they figured eliminate the process. Then we had an issue come up, and it was an what zoning was that?
A1.
Oh, it was an A1. And so because it was an A1, which is split between a road, my understanding is, that an issue became apparent. So that's why we got involved in all this, because of one thing. Again, I do not like to legislate changes for one person, because one person, if we do that, we will be changing our ordinances all day long, because there's always one person who's going to complain about something, because there's always one crabby apple in the group. That is just the way it is. I totally think property rights are very important, and you should be able to do what's right. There seems to be a leaning that we should go back to special use permit, and the difference with the special use permit versus by right would give, and I would like clarification, what additional things are involved that would, a special use permit would protect the current landowner, the person living in the echo home, and the right of your property, of somebody living right next to your property, where I think people are opposed to smaller areas. Can you clarify that, please?
Just in summary, the building permit process is an administrative review process. There's no public involvement. Special use process would require a public hearing and provide more public input into the authorization for that entitlement.
How long does that take?
Depends on caseload, the agenda schedules, but it's conceivable, once you have completed filed application, that you could be in commission between about 45 days and sometimes to 40 within 60.
How much does that cost additional?
The special use permit fee for a residential special use permit is $675. There may be other associated costs with the process, certified mailings and newspaper publication, which could be anywhere between $200 to $300.
And in connection with that, not only is there a hearing, but as a part of the notice process that David just mentioned, what that means is that adjacent property owners would receive a notice that such a hearing was going to take place. And this is true of all special uses, regardless of what type. But, Mr. Chairman, this has been very helpful, this series of sort of advisory votes to give a sense of current consensus on some of the major topics, so that we can now, this hasn't decided anything, as you know, it's just given us a feeling of the current majority view on some of these key matters that are before the committee. we now feel prepared to draft something for your consideration, and then you can vote to amend it or adopt it, and then only at that point in time will it go out to public hearing.
Okay, before we conclude, let's take a consensus on the present requirement for 62 years of age or disability or a caretaker. I have a motion to leave that as is.
Move.
Motion, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll leave those alone. And the fee schedule, let's take a consensus to waive the fee. We have a motion to waive the fee for Echo Housing. Have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
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 We got 3 no's. Okay. Well, let's take a roll call on the
Mr. Chairman?
fee schedule. Yes.
All I want to say is that the fee has never been an issue. I mean, as far as I know, nobody's ever come and said, this is a hardship and we can't pay the fee. I don't think that's an issue.
Well, it is an issue with some of the members.
Well, you know what, and I do think rather than say we're going to waive the fee, you should have a hardship process for somebody who really is where it's a hardship, can apply for the fee to be waived due to hardship. But to blanketly waive the fee, I think would really be an error. You know, now, somebody like Bob, a rich farmer, Washington, the Springfield lobbyist, making probably $250,000 a year. Why should I waive the fee for Bob? I'm exaggerating that, but why would you want to waive the fee for him? Why would you want to waive the fee for me?
So I could someday move to Franklin. See, I gotta save my money.
Yeah. But why waive the fee for a person like me? I mean, so I would just say to blankly waive the fee. Not only I think it would be inappropriate, because then you're asking the other taxpayers to pay for that person with no real basis that there's a hardship. And what stops you from waiving all other fees that come for these types of land use purposes? So I would say if you want to make a provision for waiving the fee, that would be, I think, appropriate. To blankly waive the fee, I think would be totally inappropriate. That's it. Before I get that in before you vote.
Okay.
Can we amend that?
No, you know what?
Waiver?
Ray, you have a comment?
Can we
All I was going to say is what I said last month, is that I don't think we should waive the fee because there are fees that the county is going to incur. We have staff, we have to mail to those surrounding units, the houses, we have to post in the newspaper that we're publishing. We have to do a lot of things, and we're just going to spend the money, and I don't think it's fair to push it on to the other constituents.
Steve, comment?
Yeah, what Jim said made a lot of sense. We should have them apply. We should have a provision to apply for a hardship, and if they can meet the provision, then raise the fee.
Okay, Judy.
If Kirk doesn't drink, she's going to.
Okay, so, David, want to talk first? Go ahead.
Just with regard to refunds and waivers, there is a provision in the fee schedule that authorizes, or this basically states that those have to be requested through the board. So there is a process right now, if somebody wants to request a waiver or a refund, that it starts at the executive committee, and if the executive committee desires to entertain that request, they assign it to land use, and then it goes forward to the board. So there is an established process at this point for somebody to request relief.
You don't have something for, if they're poor or something like that, they can come in and say the income is too low, no?
We have no established thresholds, but what we would, in that process, advise the person requesting the waiver or the refund is to stipulate what their hardship is.
Okay.
And then that's what the board would consider.
Okay. Judy?
Okay, so this is so complicated. It's complicated because with the special use permit, so the only difference in that versus a right is that there's a public hearing. So with the public hearing, it gives the neighbors in the surrounding area or adjacent area to come to public hearing and say, I think that it's okay if they put an Echo House, or I don't think it's okay if they put an Echo House. So we could have people in identical zoning areas with crabby neighbors who don't like that person, or we have people in another area who the neighbors don't care. And through the special use process, we would approve or deny it based upon the crabbiness of the neighborhood. Possible. I mean, it's possible, Jim. You don't think so?
I can tell you that in my experience, the board looks pretty much through that. You know, the neighbor who comes and says, I just don't like it, you know, it obstructs my view or something, or I do think historically the board has looked through that, because we have had those people who come and say, well, I just don't like it. Well, that's not a reason. So they have to demonstrate how they feel it really negatively impacts the use of their property and the value of their property. And generally, that's not the case. So, you know, so crabby, just because you're crabby doesn't count.
Okay, so then
I'm just telling you that.
okay, that's fine, and then I'm just confused with special use or not special use. That's fine, we can take up the discussion, bring it to the full board, whatever you guys have that. I know you guys are gonna love me. I do think that with the building of the new tiny homes, like, you watch that on TV, you can see that these homes are pretty decent homes. They are homes that are well-built and have approvals. I think that's something, maybe not today, but something that we look into. Would we allow that at all? Because for me, I have 3 kids who are in their 20s now, and I do live on A1 property, and maybe we'd want to have that. So that's another conversation, I know that, but I think this is just, I think that we go back to exactly how it was, except we've eliminated some now, the R2A and R3, just from our group consensus, and whether we should have special use or not. So put that together for us, good luck, and we'll be back here.
Denise, do you have a comment?
All right.
Never mind.
Let's take up the roll call on the special use waiving the fee, so we have consensus one way or the other on that.
What's the motion?
To waive the fee for special use.
So moved.
Second.
We already had a motion, but we
Oh, okay.
Just need the roll call.
need a roll call.
So yes means you want to waive the fee, no means you want to charge it.
Correct.
Okay, roll call.
Want to get
Denise Winfrey,
Yeah.
Judy Ogala,
Yes.
Robert Howard,
Yes.
Steve Ballage,
No.
Rachel Manila,
Nope.
Lauren Staley Perry, Chairman Weigel.
No. So it's 4-3 not to waive the fee. Dave, you have enough direction to bring something back?
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll move on. Building permit discussion. Mike?
Good morning, Chairman Weigel, members of the committee. At last month's land use hearing, committee member Howard had expressed his interest in knowing what the building permit activity was for the county this year. So I distributed a memo that just kind of gives a high-level overview of the permit activity for 2016 fiscal year in comparison to 2014 and 2015. As of September 28th, the building department has issued 1,823 permits and conducted 4,592 inspections. I believe that at the end of the 2016 fiscal year, we will exceed both 2015 and 14 for permit numbers. We've already exceeded inspections performed. those last 2 years. As of September 28th, we've had 2,132 permits applied for. So we're up. I also want to take this opportunity just to inform the committee of a new endeavor that the Land Use Department took in June. We've launched a new building permit system that went active June 27th. That permit system greatly increases the department's efficiencies in processing building permits. There's also a public portal aspect to that permit system. We're slowly starting to roll that out. What that public portal allows for is for people to apply for, pay for, issue the permits, and request inspections from home on their computer. They don't have to come down to the Land Use Department. They don't have to call. They don't have to fax. So this is really, increasing the customer experience for the county residents. Right now, it's only certain kinds of permits, but ultimately will be every building permit. So that's a big step in modernizing the department's building permit process. I also wanted to let everyone know that part of this new permitting system allows for us to do automated monthly reporting. All the county board members' email addresses will be added to that automated monthly reporting. As much as I like coming here and sharing this information with you, starting next month, you'll just get it automatically in an email. They'll give you all the permits in all the townships and what type of permits they were that were issued. Okay? One other thing I'd like to point out is with this public portal, where citizens will be able to apply for, pay for, issue permits to themselves online, it will allow you as a member of the public, if you get a call from a constituent that is having a building permit issue or has questions related to a building permit, you can go onto the public portal, you can put in the constituent's address and see where their building permit process is at with us. You can see all the related documents, you can see stats, reviews, it'll all be accessible. Right. And I give you the link to that website so you can start doing that. Okay? You're welcome.
Thank you. Any questions? Tom?
Yeah, I'll make it brief. Thanks, Mike. I thank staff for doing this. I mean, this is phenomenal. This actually helps out, and because there is a lot of questions about that. And I have to thank the staff too. I did receive calls, and staff actually helped work through these issues with residents out that were having building permit issues. And then, but you have to promise me that no matter what, that when we call, we'll always be able to talk to a human being. So don't get so advanced. We'll start talking to a machine now or something like that. So that is very frustrating. So, but anyway, no, you guys do a great job. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Always appreciate the thank yous, but it's important for the board to realize, if you don't already realize, that this came about through work of the board many years ago when you were assessing your priorities for technology improvements. Now, this goes back many years, but at that time, installing the type of system that Mike was describing to you was ranked in that process by the board committee on this subject as a #1 priority. But of course, with funding issues and intervention of other matters, it took a while for the money to finally be freed up for this purpose. But this isn't simply a staff initiative. The board recognized through their decision-making process on technology priorities that this sort of thing needed to happen, and it's great to be able to report to you now that it's finally happened. I will point out, just as long as we're in a bragging mood, that within Will County, there are only about 2 other jurisdictions, I'm speaking of municipal jurisdictions, that have similar capability at the present time. So in that sense, this is an instance of Will County kind of getting out ahead of the curve.
Very good. Thank you. Next item is the historic landmark. Janine?
Thank you, Chairman Weigel. So up before you today is the nomination of 504 East Baltimore Street in Wilmington. It's also known as the McGinnis-Kaler home as a Will County landmark. The home is located within the municipal boundaries of the city of Wilmington. And on August 16, 2016, Wilmington passed Ordinance 16-08-16-01, which authorized us to designate 504 East Baltimore as a Will County landmark. The residence was nominated by its owner, Laura Hackett, and satisfied 6 of the 12 criteria for consideration of nomination. Criteria A, C, D, F, H, and J. 504 East Baltimore was constructed in 1895 and is an excellent example of a Queen Anne style home. It was constructed for a prominent local farmer named William McGinnis and his wife Eliza. And the second owners were the Clarence Kaler family, who at the time when he purchased the home in 1914, he was the mayor of Wilmington. So the home's exterior and the interiors really reflect the wealth of both of those first two original owners, who are credited with making the structural changes to the home over the time. The Will County Historic Preservation Commission held a public hearing on October 5th, 2016. There were no objections, and the applicant, who is also the owner, spoke in favor of the nomination. The Will County Historic Preservation Commission voted unanimously in support of the nomination of 504 East Baltimore Street as a Will County landmark. And today I am asking for your support of the nomination of 504 East Baltimore Street as a Will County landmark.
Make a motion. Second. Motion second. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Go on to reports. I have no reports. Committee members, any comments? Okay, Director, any comments?
Yes, sir. I reported to the committee at the previous meeting that we had made some internal changes in the management of the department, where David Dubois is now serving as the Deputy Director of the department. In that connection, he oversees what's called our Administration and Planning Division. He will continue to be involved with the research efforts necessary to look at ordinance changes like we discussed today, matters of that type. That research activity will still be under David. The regular process of preparing staff reports on zoning cases occurs within our Development Review Division, and Brian Radner is now the director of that division. And Brian, of course, has worked with you for many, many years, but this is his first meeting, I believe, since being appointed to that new position. But with that evolution, we have new staff beyond that. So, Brian, if you could introduce our new staff member to the committee.
All right, yes, thank you. I'd like to introduce Ms. Jessica Gao here. She's sitting right in front of me. She obtained her Bachelor of Arts in Urban and Regional Planning from the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. And she had some experience interning at Champaign County before she joined us.
Welcome. Welcome. Okay, any public comment? No need for executive session. There's a motion to adjourn. Motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.